Welcome to Unscripted, a Siena Hoops podcast. I'm a Siena senior, Carter Gooley.
And I'm Siena sophomore, Joe Lemery. And we're here to bring you the inside scoop on Siena's NIL collective, Saints March On.
Hear from players, coaches, and more as we bring you the X's and O's of the Siena men's and women's basketball teams.
So sit back and enjoy.
For this episode, we got a great lineup of guests for you.
Oh, yeah, we got the men's head coach, Coach Carm. We got the women's assistant coach, Coach Primm. And we got Frank and Sheila Ambrose, the co-founders of Saints March On.
So sit back and enjoy. And now we're joined by Coach Carm of the Saints. Thanks for joining us, Carm. How you doing today?
Hey, it's always good after a victory, so I'm doing pretty good.
Yes, always good, especially for me because my brother goes to Holy Cross, so there's a little bit of a rivalry. So, this home opener have been good for me. We can talk trash a little bit. But first, tell us a little bit how this home opener was different than past because such a young team, third youngest in Division I. Explain the game plan almost coming into this game rather than years past.
Yeah, so obviously you just want to kind of get the guys acclimated, right? We hadn't even been to MVP other than for one fan event. Guys got to see the court, pick their lockers out in the locker room. We kind of make that a little tradition with so many new guys, wanting them to be comfortable. But for me, nothing really changed. It was try to get these young guys acclimated early. Obviously, I thought Braylon with his first college game, first college start, I thought he did really well. And then obviously Michael Ojo, Max Frazier, those guys played in significant minutes. So nothing changed except maybe, I knew there'd be mistakes. I knew there'd be growing pains. Obviously, we gave up, I want to say 6 threes in the first half. I think we held them to, mid-20s, and 15 of those points were on threes, So I thought we were right where we needed to be. I thought we had great energy. I wanted to see how our guys responded to the fans. Obviously, you guys in the Dog Pound were great. And we have a DJ to make the experience a little better. I think that's awesome for our students. So, I didn't change. I just, I knew I was going to have to live with some mistakes. Obviously, when you have an older veteran team, you're expecting things to be really sharp. So we were going to have to coach, right? That's coach through those mistakes, get those guys to understand, hey, it's the next play. Don't let that thing that happened, that possession before, bog you down now here in the present moment.
So, Coach, you talk about Braylon Smith and the freshman. How much of an impact did they have on that game last night, and how pleased were you with their first performance?
Oh, I was very pleased. I thought we were able to just get them that experience where now they're not anticipating anything. There's not as much anxiety, right? They're able to do that, and that was a concern of mine, right? You're playing in your first home game. It's not on the road, right? On the road is a little less pressure. At home, expectations, I talk about this with Michael Ely a lot because now he's a sophomore, and he understood, hey, Coach, these guys don't know what Siena basketball is about yet, right? Everyone on campus knows who you are. Your professors are at the games, and that's also why we recruit the right type of young men that want to, have that character that we talk about, being able to lead in the community too. So, I was happy. I thought it was a great first game for them, and now, Richmond's on deck.
Yeah. How so Ely stepping up into, he was mainly 6-man last year. Now he jumps into the starting role, kind of a star player. Had a career night last night with 24 and 11, I believe. How pleased are you with that, and do you continue to see this jump improve? Also with his injury as well, because he got injured late in the game, right?
Yeah, so right now we're just waiting on feedback from Doc. He's got a swollen ankle, so we got to see, hey, is it sprained? Hopefully there's nothing else wrong with it, but we'll get him an x-ray just to make sure. And then moving forward, Michael's talented. We know that. 24 and 11 career, double-double, his first, I believe. I think he still has so much room for growth, and then it's also, hey, understanding time and score. We don't want our guys on the floor to look for Michael to make a tough shot at the end of a shot clock every time, right? We want to continually run our offense. That ball's got to move. He can cut and get somebody else open because he attracts the defense to collapse. So just getting him to understand that, and I think he does a good job as a screener. I thought defensively he did a really good job. And to be honest with you, when Holy Cross took that lead late last night, Michael was that calming influence. The guys looked to him. When he hurt his ankle with about 30 seconds left, the guys looked to him, and he was on the floor, and we were going to get a sub, and he jumped up and said he was all right. He wanted to finish the game. He goes, let's go win this game. And so I think that's a great leadership moment. It also shows his influence with our guys, and that's why he's so important.
So also at the end of the game, Braylon Smith seemed to be limping a little bit heading back to the locker room. Can you tell us a little bit about that?
Yeah, Braylon's fine. He was just cramping up. I think he played probably, did he play 28 or 32? He played big minutes. So getting these guys to understand, but the beauty of what we're doing, we have Connexon, and it's something that we've been able to invest in. So thankful we have those resources to do that. And Connexon is basically a GPS tracker. So in practice on a hard or heavy load day, our guys are running between 4 and 4.3 miles. Now, on a game day with a 60-minute shoot around at 2 o'clock to 3 o'clock, that's about a mile and a half. Now, we're not doing anything taxing. We're not playing live, but we're shooting. We're guarding the other team. We're going over our offensive playbook for the game. And then on top of that, you talk about warm-ups. Warm-ups is another mile. So I've even made that where some teams come in when the horn hits 60. I've made it our guys come in at 50 so they're free shooting or not exerting too much energy. Then we talk. I may have to talk more so they use less energy, but I did think we looked a little fatigued in that second half. I thought our first half energy-wise was really good. We can't relax, right? You get an 8-point lead, you got to grow it to 10, 12, 14. You can't relax when it gets to 10 and now it's 6 or 4 because then the game turns into what it did last night against Holy Cross.
Yeah, I think that comes a lot with, the young team. They're inexperienced. They're still getting it. Can you explain some of the struggles that they went, like, other than, the fatigue and everything, but some of the struggles late in the game for all the freshmen in this game?
Yeah, guarding shooters. Obviously Nugent is a really good shooter. That was the scout. Make him dribble a basketball. Now, we can't let him get loose, right? First half, Michael Ojo runs to the paint as opposed to stopping the ball in transition. I think Bo Montgomery hit a wide open 3. Drivers, right? Guys driving us. We needed to make Montgomery go left. We let him continually go right. Obviously at the end of the game, I think we were able to kind of get a stop, and I thought we did a decent job on Joe Octave as well. But I think the biggest thing is guys understanding the scouting report, right? We don't do scouting reports just to waste our time, right? We're doing it to help our players succeed on the floor, but that's also with a young team. Hey, understand the scouting report, right? Make guys that want to shoot dribble. Make guys that want to dribble shoot. That simple.
And as far as you mentioned closing out games, what do you think the adjustment has to be going forward to help your guys just finish it out?
Yeah, so just guys understanding attention to detail, with a younger team. And, that was the first time Giovanni's played that many minutes in a Division I college basketball game. Yeah. So getting guys to understand out of the timeout, hey, this is what we're running. We do it in practice. At the end of practice or at the beginning of practice, we review our playbook and our kind of ATOs, which is after timeouts. And so now it's, hey, well, where did we make the mistake here, right? I thought we did a decent job getting the ball in, but there was that time where it got deflected. We're on the baseline, gets deflected out of bounds. Now it's our ball side out. We can't move, right? How are we getting it in? Then late game, we had to get the ball in again on the other side when they threw it out of bounds, and we have Zach Tekken in the wrong spot. The details matter, right? We want to be able to space the floor, get it to our free throw shooter. We close out the game. I was happy with our free throw shooting, though. I thought we took a step there. Obviously, that's, I think, where we ended up winning the game, right?
Yeah, Holy Cross shot like 3 for 14 or something. Well, we shot 16 for 21, I believe.
You start the season a lot against out-of-conference teams. What are your expectations, especially after this big win, for the rest of those out-of-conference games?
Just to get better, right? To learn from our mistakes. It's good because the style of play of the teams we're playing kind of are similar, right? So Holy Cross, Richmond, American, those 3 teams are going to play pretty much similar brand of basketball. You'll see a lot of the same offensive actions. Obviously, Dave Paulson, head coach at Holy Cross. Dwayne Simpkins used to work for Dave Paulson at George Mason, right? And now he's the head coach at American. Richmond, obviously, Chris Mooney's been there forever. They run a hybrid Princeton offense as well. All similar concepts with their big man having the ball on the perimeter, top of the key, the elbows. So now you're going to be guarding them. And also now you know what to expect, right? So guys, now we can see how guys can adjust, right? Where were our mistakes against Holy Cross? Let's see if we can correct some of those. Obviously, it's our first road trip, right? We're going to leave on Thursday. We play Saturday night at Richmond. Then we play Monday at American. So how are the guys going to handle that? We have study hall on the road. Our academic advisor comes with us. So it's not vacation, right? Some young guys, their mindset is, we're going on the road. We don't have to do anything except sleep and play ball. Nobody. We got to register for classes. We got to do study hall. We have to still have Zooms with the writing center. So just getting these guys to understand, hey, this is also a job, right? You have to be a student athlete. You're not just an athlete.
Do you have any updates on Sean Gordon and that whole process?
Yeah, so obviously we've done our due diligence. We've done all the paperwork that the NCAA is required, attestations, and just really now it's up to them, right? And the NCAA really has no timetable. When you go for a waiver, depending on the nature of the waiver, the subject of that waiver, will go to that part or that branch of the NCAA committee. So there's a caseworker that works it, and then he brings it to the committee. Now, he gets feedback from the committee, and ultimately that caseworker makes the decision. So we're just waiting on that decision. Obviously, he was a transfer from Austin Peay. Before that, though, he was at Missouri, so he's a two-time transfer. So we needed a waiver, right? The NCAA said they would not grant any two-time waivers unless extenuating circumstances were present. So we showed those circumstances. We showed everything that Sean went through. We have documentation. And now it's Austin Peay had 10 days to look over our waiver at the same time that the branch of the NCAA is looking over it. And now that 10-day ended yesterday for Austin Peay. So they had no issues with it, which is a good thing. They support the waiver. Now it's the NCAA, the committee, get back to the caseworker, and then hopefully we hear something. Hopeful for this week. It would be great. We would have him for Richmond and American on this trip. And the other thing is getting him in game shape now, right? He's been practicing. He's had some different injuries, since he's been here, and so now it's just continually get him growing as well.
Awesome. And sticking with NIL deals and whatnot, Michael Ely just got his NIL deal with the Works Cafe, and I know you have the Coach Carm Parm happening. So you want to tell us a little bit more about that?
Yeah, so obviously Cardona's Market right here in Loudonville, they do a great job. So everyone, I guess it's a hot seller. So they introduced it last year, and we brought it back. I think they gave us we had about 75 sandwiches that we gave out the other day to students just to kind of show them what the Coach Carm Parm's all about. So if you guys don't know, it's a little eggplant, right? Fried eggplant, chicken cutlet, fresh mozzarella, marinara, fresh Italian roll, like sub roll. Really good. Yeah. But I'm excited for Michael. It's funny. He loves the work, so he goes there for breakfast. Yeah. Now, it's funny. His is, I think, I think it's on a bagel.
He's got triple meat. He's got sausage, ham, bacon, cheese
bagel. I like
egg.
the fact that there's syrup on there. Yeah, you got a little sweetness in there. Yeah. Sweetness with your breakfast meats.
Really it's great. You guys handed out those sandwiches. There was National Sandwich Day or something like that? I saw that, yeah.
So they do a great job, our marketing company at Louis Associates and Mark Bardak. And, obviously, we're so appreciative, too. There's a big dinner coming up, too, with some former players. Ronald Moore, Alex Franklin are going to be in town. So we play Ryder December 1st. Yeah. Those guys will be in town for that. And then there's a dinner December 2nd, so at 677 Prime. It's $250. We want as many fans and alums to come and donate. They can do that at saintsmarchon.com. They can purchase a ticket. They can also become a member of Saints March On, right? They can become a member, or they can just give a one-time donation. So really excited for our fans. We are in such a great space, and it's a credit to Frank Ambrose and Sheila and everybody on the board and you guys for stepping up here. Because I don't think a lot of schools at this level are doing it, and even at higher level, per se, conferences, right? We don't want to compete with the MAC. We want to compete with upper conferences, and that's what we do in recruiting too, because if you can out-recruit your competition, then you're in a great spot, and obviously Saints March On is a way to help.
Yeah, it's been great. Yeah. So let's move forward to the upcoming games, Richmond and American. Can we just have a bit of game previews, maybe potential starting lineups, stuff like that?
So Richmond, obviously Jordan King. I think he had 34 last night. I think he had 20 in the first. I think he had 20 in the first 12 minutes when they beat VMI. I'm still doing my homework on Richmond. Obviously, I'll start watching film, and I got to get that VMI game, and then I'm gonna watch some film from Richmond years ago when I was an assistant at George Washington, just to see if there's any similarities with some different things that we did then. And then, obviously American, I haven't seen them at all. Like I said, though, I'm pretty familiar with Dwayne and their style of play with him working for Coach Paulson at Holy Cross. We were recruiting one of their centers until we found Gio, who ended up going back there when Dwayne got the job. Last name's Webb, so he's a big 7-footer, really skilled. He's from, I believe he's from Denmark. So, So we know some of their roster, but I got to get more familiar. I know bits and pieces, but it's like preparing for an exam, right? And finally game day when that ball tips up, that's the start of it where you got to be ready. So I'm right now just still gathering information and doing my research.
Yeah. And Coach, tell us about you got the tournament coming up in Daytona Beach soon in a couple weeks. How excited is your team for that? I know last year you guys played at the ESPN Invitational. So what is that going to be like? How similar is that going to be this year?
So Sunshine Slam, obviously through the Gazelle Group, it's a great event. I think with a younger team, obviously we had an older team and we beat Florida State and Seton Hall and came in third and finished ahead of Memphis and ahead of Seton Hall, and so that was pretty cool. This is a tournament where Richmond is kind of part of that MTE, so we'll play at Richmond. Richmond will be in the bigger bracket with, I think, like Colorado and Florida State and one other team, and we'll play Central Michigan, and I think then it's Milwaukee and Stetson. So you win, you get the chance to play for a championship. You lose, you're playing for a third or fourth place. So the goal is to compete for a championship. Obviously with the Albany Cup, the Brother Ed Cup, and now this, you got 3 chances to get some hardware, and it's always good to win something, right? You guys are playing for something. It's a chance to kind of differentiate your season, and we're excited about it. Obviously, we got some fans coming too. We got a bunch of alums and donors down in the Daytona, Orlando area. So we're looking for that. We're doing an event with the team the night before the game, right in our hotel. And then who doesn't like the beach in the sun?
Absolutely, and that's going to build so much confidence for your young group of guys. So our final question for you today, Coach. I know the holiday season is approaching. It's around the corner already, November. Can't believe it. So what is your favorite holiday?
Ooh, does the first day of basketball season count?
We can make it.
No, so it's my favorite holiday. I think all of them are great for me because it's time with family. And obviously in this profession, I wouldn't be able to do this if I didn't have an amazing wife and my kids, and it keeps it in perspective. Being able to have support from my mom and dad and my sister too, who are all in the area, is special. My friends. So anytime there's a holiday, I make the most of it. I wouldn't say one's better than the other. Obviously, I like the ones that are during the season because it's a good little kind of reset or break. This year we'll have the whole team to my parents' house. And families that are in town visiting before the Albany Cup game will be welcome, and we get that from Mazzone's catering, so it's really good as well.
That's awesome. Coach, we appreciate your time. You're doing a great job. We're excited to see how the season goes, and we'll see you soon, I'm sure. So thank you.
Thanks, guys. Go Saints.
So I'm here with women's assistant coach Terry Primm. How you doing today, Coach?
Doing awesome. How are you?
Doing good. So I want to talk to you. First of all, so happy to have you on the show, by the way. And what are your expectations this season for the girls? I know you got a young team. What are your thoughts?
It's growth. Yeah, it's always growth. And, at least I try to be careful, just to follow Coach's lead with this. But we just want to stay focused on getting them better every day. And we've always taken pride in that, just getting them one step closer to where we want them. So especially for a young team, you want that to be the focus. Eventually they'll be where they need to be, but, want to be very careful about how you approach every day and the expectations.
Yeah. So with such a young team, expectations for the season can not, I don't want to say start low, but, they'll obviously rise as you talk about. What's the confidence with this team going into the opening game of the season on the road? It's not at home, it's on the road. That can be, a bigger impact on the team. What's the confidence like?
Yeah, well, it's always high. We recruit good people, and I think the confidence will always be in that. And I think anything else, in terms of how high our standards are, that will never change. We love them as people, and so, a lot of times the games are just a matter of learning and finding out who you are. That's the beauty of it. It's kind of like a beautiful painting that you start from scratch and eventually end up with something amazing. But sometimes you didn't start with the end. So I think what's beautiful about it is we get a chance to see who we are, who they are, but we're really just embracing the journey, and we don't want them to lose sight of that. We're going to be really, really good, one day, and we're just going to allow ourselves the time that it takes to get there.
And Coach, obviously the youth is such a big factor on this team. How do you What do you think about the potential for this squad, considering how young they are, and how excited does that make you?
It's great. It's great. The potential's, really high. I think, there are two approaches to building your team. Of course, with the transfer portal, a lot of teams are going in that direction, and sometimes you can see things a lot faster than you would if you were to go the route that we're going, which is the high school movement. But you get those kids for 4 years, and you get a chance to really have an impact on them earlier. And so a lot of the things that they end up doing towards the end of their career, that it was because they bought into what you wanted to do, and they're kind of living their truth in the sense that they're becoming who they were eventually built to become. And that's a beautiful thing when you can see it from the beginning all the way through their senior year. So yeah, I mean, they're a great group of girls, and just the opportunity to play is a blessing. So we can't wait till Thursday. We feel pretty confident about it.
Yeah, so, talking about, seeing their growth, Coach Jaber has obviously rebuilt programs before, with Dayton and so on and so forth. What is specific about this kind of rebuild he's doing with the Siena program in his second stint that makes it so special?
Well, I think you've heard great coaches say this. Every team is different, and so I think the fact that we're here, it makes it special. But if I was to delve into it a little more, I think at a place like this, like Siena, where there's so much love and support, basketball being very important here, but ultimately you just got a lot of good people on campus, and that do a lot for us, do a lot for our program, and to be in a position to bring a strong sense of pride just from our side of the house. There's been success everywhere, but to be a part of a rebuild that once it's done, it's sort of be this resurgence that they haven't seen in quite some time. Just to be a part of that makes it special. You know what I'm saying? So, I wasn't with them at Dayton, but looking at it from the outside, I think, it was cool to see a team that nobody expected to get as deep as they did get there. You know what I'm saying? And so we'd love to do that here, but I'm pretty sure that they had some celebrations prior to getting to that point, and so we don't want to be a prisoner of that. And I think that in itself makes it special. Yeah.
And Coach, so I wanna talk a little bit more about you and have the fans get to know you a little more. What got you into coaching and your love for basketball?
Passion for kids, and having an experience myself. It's a little unconventional, not playing high school ball and playing a little junior college, and not having that opportunity academically to go Division I because of credits, and really didn't know a whole lot about credits. I was taking great classes too, like physics and trigonometry, and I wasn't taking easy classes, but I wasn't taking enough credits. And so I got to this place where I needed those credits and couldn't get them in a quick period of time. So it forced me to go in a certain direction, which was great for me. I had a great time where I went to school. But when I look back on it, I reflected on it, I felt like I needed a little bit more counseling. Going through this experience that was uncharted for me. Nobody in my family had gone through it. And so I needed someone maybe to step in and guide me in the smaller aspects. And that's what really motivated me to want to coach. I just wanted to originally be a mentor to kids and, just kind of help them. We had basketball, but in other aspects of life, I was a little further down the road than they were. So I just wanted to give them some advice, no matter how it came. And the basketball part just kept snowballing. I don't know if I ever thought about being a coach, but I was always a coach because it was just a matter of helping somebody. So I would say the passion for kids first, but, you love the game, right? And so anytime you get a chance to do something you love, it's a blessing. And that was probably the other side of it, but the kids primarily.
Awesome. And Coach, we'll switch gears a little bit to the NIL collective we have at school, St. Smart John. How do you feel about the collective, and how do you feel like it has impacted these young girls' lives?
Well, I mean, I think it's great that, and I know there's a lot around it, uncharted waters, still trying to figure things out, but I love the fact that kids can get compensated for their name, image, and likeness. I mean, the work that they've done over the years to be able to be compensated for it. And in the past, if you've gotten any compensation for it, it's been a violation. You're ridiculed, ostracized, right? And that sometimes for some folks, this is like the time. They're probably not going to get another time like this. And for so many years, that time was passing. If your only opportunity to earn was the pros, what happens if you never go to the pros? Anything can happen. So, and it had happened. I guess they progressed that a little bit. I'm, maybe not speaking as intelligently, but I think in the past, maybe insurance was offered to players. You could sign over a policy. If you got hurt, it would pay you out. But, the earning potential was never in alignment with the insurance for some players. If you were willing to give $1 million, policy to a kid, that means they're probably worth a lot more than that. But now you're seeing kids get their worth, which is kind of cool. And I think it's super for us, as I think if I got this right, are we the only program in the conference with the collective? Do I have that right? So, and even if we're not, we were first, and to have a community that saw it, and the Ambrose see it and jump all over it, and and really be driven by supporting the kids and setting Siena apart. I think that's been that kind of effort from the beginning, right? I think that's why you've seen Siena on some stages that people probably didn't expect, because you've always had people like that looking to separate us. So I think it's huge. I celebrate it 1,000%. And over the years, I think we'll as a whole, in terms of NCAA, the NCAA family, I think we'll figure out a way to constantly make it better. But I think it's great.
And Coach, one of the things I respect about you the most is your wisdom, and I think you always have great lessons to share with young kids. And so, what is the biggest life lesson you've learned and that you'd like to share to other kids around?
Oh man. So many, but I would say one of my favorite parables in the Bible is the one about the wheat and the tares. And the main premise is time will tell, right? So you don't want to be too hard on yourself, and you don't want to be too hard on others, because in the early years, the wheat looks exactly like the tares. So if you go out and react, you might end up learning that you remove wheat and you left tares. And so just be patient, go do your work. You're obviously going to prep, put in your time, but once you've done that, just be patient and continue to work towards your goals. And because sometimes they don't come when you expect it. And sometimes the people around you today, you'll realize, aren't the people that's going to be around you tomorrow. And so you just kind of wait it out, stay growth minded and just be patient, and everything will work out. Yeah.
Yeah. So talking about being patient, can you explain some of the things you do to keep patient? Like, it's very hard, especially like myself. I'm not a very patient person. What are some of the things that you do to stay patient all the time?
Well, I'm not patient, actually. You know what I'm saying? No, I'm not patient at all. I think, but what I do a lot. I reflect a lot, and I try to be measured, but not too measured, because you want to make those mistakes sometimes. You know what I'm saying? And I think the main thing I do is I never see many things as a loss. Everything is a win, or I'm learning. So, and then if I'm winning, I don't want to rest too much in the wins, because then you get a little complacent, get a little lazy, you get a little fat, and next thing you know, you're not in the position that you thought you were in, or that you were originally in when you won. So I think ultimately I just want to, be reflective, and I want to take advantage of every opportunity. And then when I fail, I just want to learn, how did I fail? I'm not afraid to look at the loss. And I think as a player, I'm so old. I came around during when video became a little more prominent. So you got a chance to see your losses, right? Yeah. And throughout the years, I've come to realize that a lot of people don't want to see their loss. Like we kind of want to block our losses out. We don't want. Let's just keep moving forward. And sometimes that's necessary. We got to keep moving forward. But when you get the time and you can look at it critically, just take a look back at that loss and kind of break it down to see where you went wrong, because there's so much in that loss, man. So I would say that would be the best advice I can give. Yeah.
Coach, who was your greatest mentor in life that helped you, gave you a lot of these values and life lessons that you have instilled in you today?
I realized that as my career took turns and where I ended up now has a lot to do with my mentor, and I would say it's my mom. I really would. She's an amazing woman, probably the closest thing to Jesus Christ I've met on this earth. And of course, she's had her moments where she wasn't Jesus Christ. She's the closest. Man, she's amazing to me. Resilient, all those things that I think I am, man, she's that personified. And just never was afraid. She just stepped in, and not that she wasn't scared, but sometimes, being, I don't know, I kind of play with words sometimes, and being afraid paralyzes you. Being scared is all right. Maybe that even gives you a little extra boost when you're scared, but you don't want to be immobilized by it. But she, I can't say enough about her. She's definitely my number one mentor for sure. And then, of course, all of my coaching leaders, from Ron Johnson to Jim, and even folks that I've worked for. Even my head coach at at Coastal Carolina, Jada, was a mentor in a lot of respects. Her, Heather, who was on her staff, was a mentor in a lot of respects. I mean, all of my colleagues are, if I'm being honest, because I'm always trying to glean, and even you guys as young adults, up and coming new professionals, getting your degrees. Like, I watch how you guys, I just try to. I think the Bible says something like, if the rocks cry out, I'm listening for anything and everything to start providing that wisdom and direction. So I would say I don't limit that, but shit started with her for sure.
That's amazing, Coach. And so we'll finish today with a little more of a lighthearted question. What is your favorite holiday? I know the holiday season's coming around. What do you enjoy? What do you get excited for?
Man, you know what? And if I'm being honest, every day is a holiday, and that sounds so crazy, right? But and I certainly don't want to minimize the seasons for anybody. But I think I was probably in my mid-30s when I started to think that we almost saved enjoying the days or the times for certain days and times, right? And I just thought it was so fascinating that we would, whether it be a birthday, Mother's Day, Father's Day, Thanksgiving, Christmas, like, you see all this extra pomp and circumstance for these days, and then for the other days, it's just kind of whole life. And I decided that I wanted to have that feeling every day. So I wanted to try to celebrate it, and probably even connect a little bit more to what celebration means, and maybe that meant on those days I had to bring it down a little bit, and then the other days I had to bring it up a little bit. And so now I'm at this place where I really have an appreciation for every day. But with that being said, I will say that Christmas is, you know what I'm saying? And in the North, Christmas is awesome, because in the South, it's still cool, and I spent a lot of time in Florida, so it was cool. But that extra element of the snow, and I mean, it just does something. Oh my goodness. So I'll start playing Christmas music now, just because of that. So I would go there. Yeah.
We really appreciate your wisdom and your knowledge today, and thank you so much for joining us. We appreciate it. We hope to have you again on the show. Yes.
I love what you're doing, and celebrate it and support it. So keep it going, guys.
Thank you. Best of luck this season too, Coach. So we're here with Frank
you.
and Sheila Ambrose. How are you guys doing today?
We're great.
Good. How are you?
Good. So we want to talk about the new NIL collective, Saints March On. Just came about a year ago or so. Walk us through it.
So Sheila and I have both been kind of involved in athletics for going on 6 years now. Sponsored the media center, had gotten tied into the communications program, and have a real passion for Siena basketball and for athletics in general. And we both have a business background too, so we sort of saw how the world of college athletics started to evolve. The transfer portal happened, which is probably actually a bigger deal than even NIL. And then NIL happened with the last decision, I think was the Alston decision in 2021. So when the NCAA came out with those new rules, we sort of stepped back and said, Siena's kind of uniquely positioned, right? We're here in Albany, you're kind of halfway between Boston and New York. You don't really have a ton of professional sports programs here, and Siena is like the number one thing. And we always felt like because of our fan base, the arena we play in, the history, we could maybe even take advantage of NIL and extend our advantage, especially within the MAC, because at this point, there weren't a whole lot of schools at the low, mid-major level that were even talking about this. So we had discussions with the athletic director. It took a little bit of time. Siena's not a school that moves at light speed, that's for sure. I'm sure you guys know that. And finally, we got to the point where the state came out with legislation around it. The school felt comfortable. We had set up a structure around it. We set up a corporation. Now, there's a couple different ways you can set it up. There's 501c3s that are nonprofit, and then there's an LLC structure that we decided to go down that path, mostly because we weren't really sure what was going to happen with nonprofits. And as a matter of fact, recently the IRS put out a memo. They're going to really scrutinize this. And it also restricted us because then you were just focused almost exclusively on charity work. So this way we could create something which we thought would be interesting, which is kind of a marketing company. So you have a portion of the collective is focused on donors, and that's how we've gotten this thing up and running. And now we're going to turn it into a marketing company for the players.
Yeah, so kind of from my aspect viewing it, the main goal is to be a school that players want to transfer to, right? Not like, because obviously we want these big-time players. So like a big issue was that I saw was like Javion transferred, Jared transferred. So we want, because Michael was going to transfer, correct?
I don't know that he necessarily, I mean, certainly, look, he had a kind of a little bit of a breakout with Rookie of the Year. And I guarantee you that schools are going to start reaching out to him. I'm sure. We know for a fact that people were talking to him. So yeah, for sure. Definitely. Yeah. I don't know that he necessarily was like, hey, I'm going to transfer, but the conversations were being had. Yeah, for sure.
Because that was kind of the big thing, is to keep players here more than have them leave, to try to become like a bigger school, like, the top schools like UConn and stuff like that. Yeah.
So yeah, that was, and that's an interesting point, because the collective launched in January, and by then we were already a little behind the eight ball, because I think Javion had his breakout in Orlando, right? Yeah. I mean, Oklahoma was down there. Yeah. Guess where he transferred, right? Yeah. So they're watching all the time, and that's one of the big challenges for our level. And if you talk to Carm about this too, talk about how he has to change his recruiting philosophy around this, because the major schools are using us as basically the test ground. So instead of having to go off and take a chance on a freshman, they sit back and they wait. They see how they develop at the mid-major level, and then they go try to scoop them up. So a lot of what we did was to try to counter that to a certain extent. But, I mean, Javion, good for him to go to Oklahoma. Yeah. He got a great deal, and we're very, very happy for him. Yeah,
absolutely.
So sticking with the transfer portal, how do you feel NIL has changed the way transfer portal is used, and does it affect the players' decisions now?
My philosophy is the recruiting process is like a 50-step process, right? It starts with the coach and the system and the players and the facilities and everything else. At the very end is NIL, and that's generally what it is. Kids now, look, there are some kids out there that they have agents. They're operating at a whole nother level. Kids that we're recruiting, though, they want to make sure everything else lines up. And then in the recruiting process, now Carm or Jim or one of the coaches can say, we have a collective. And Siena College has a collective. Yes, we do. Here are some examples of where it's successful. And that might entice them to go ahead and close the deal. So that's kind of where it is on the recruiting side. And I think for us, the more we get the word out there, people are going to now recognize. People know who Siena is out there, right? And so, we just got JoJo Moore just recruited, or just committed, right, for 2024 class. I think that was a big commit for us. And again, it's not like NIL was in the center of all of that. But certainly, I'm sure Carm has had conversations with him about the fact that there are opportunities for him. He comes here, he plays right away, succeeds, and then there's some opportunities with businesses here too.
I think that's a great point, because Carm talked to us about how NIL, you can't let it shape your program because you can't go use it in the transfer portal because then you miss out on like the freshmen like a Michael Ealy, or when we did get Javion, you miss out on those guys. So I think that's a great point to not let that be the main focal point for the transfer portal but also for the freshmen coming in as well.
And I think from Carm's perspective, the conversations he's had with us about how he's going to recruit and what he wants to do, you can see his philosophy right now is to get those young kids in and develop them. We're going to have the third youngest team in all of D1 this year. It's going to be a challenge out of the gate, I think. But retention's even bigger, because the good news is with retention, we can talk to the kids directly. And we don't have this arm's length, because recruiting, we can't go approach them. They have to approach us. So it's better for us to establish a relationship with them. So we start to talk to the freshmen, and as they develop, we connect them into the community more and into NIL more that way. So you want them to be a part of the community. I think that's, in the end, what we would like, to tie them to the Siena community and then the Capital Region community too.
Yeah, and you, with the players, how are they down the line? How is the changes and the development of NIL going to continue to benefit them down the line?
So I think a good collective program isn't just about cutting a deal, right? It's about the support infrastructure behind it. So we have people that are our advisors that are in the tax world, that are in the legal world. And one of our board members, Michael Haddix, has a company called Scout that's in the financial acumen space. So they teach athletes. It's custom to just athletes, right? When they have money coming in, how do you invest it? How do you manage it? All of those kinds of things. So there's a whole educational component to this. So then when these kids go overseas to play pro, or if they make the NBA, they talk to an agent, and they have a contract in front of them. We've already walked them through. This is how a contract works. Because NIL it's nothing new, right? Every professional athlete out there that does an endorsement deal, that's what NIL is. Yeah.
That's great. So now, kind of switching, let's talk about the game tonight at 7 against Holy Cross. What are your kind of predictions for the game?
We'll be there. Yeah. You know what? Here's what I want. I hope the fan base is patient, right? You've got Michael was the sixth man last year, so he is now having to be thrust front and center. That's a big leap for any sophomore, right? And the rest is a group of highly talented, like very athletic kids that are going to have to figure out how to mesh together, right? So it might be a little bit of a rocky start out of the gate, but I got to tell you, I think this may be one of the most athletic groups that I've seen since we've been watching Siena basketball. These kids have tremendous upside. Gio he looks like, a man among boys there, standing in the middle of that. But I think there's just a lot of real opportunity and upside. But again, it's gonna take a little bit of time. I'd rather see the team building to the tournament necessarily than coming out of the gate and peaking too soon.
Because Carm actually talked about the athleticism. We asked him to describe the team in 3 words, and athleticism was one of the words he gave us. And I know for me, my brother goes to Holy Cross, so it's over these years, it's kind of been a rivalry between us. And I've slowly noticed that we've played them more and more. Like last year, we played them in basketball, we've played them in lacrosse and stuff like that. So for me, I'm hoping to come out with a big win because I want to talk trash because he's been talking trash. So I gotta get that win against my brother.
Yeah, I think the cool thing about this team this year is that you said the youth, like they have a lot of sophomores and a lot of freshmen on this team. So you think the next 2-3 years they can be a really big threat in the MAC and possibly make a run in the tournament.
Yeah, and I think it reflects the way Carm wants to build a team now with everything that's changed around. And you're right. I think you get some of these kids that are going to pop. Maybe somebody comes out and just has a breakout, right? That person's obviously going to get recruited. That's okay too. We can, shake their hand and say, hey, we gave you that first chance. Go off and do some big things. But there are going to be kids, I think, that will stick around, and maybe the collective helps to keep them here.
Yeah, because we have one senior, right? I think one senior.
Yes, I think Steve, right? Steve is, yeah.
So it's a very, very young team.
Yeah.
And with going down the line, talk about the future with NIL, with Siena basketball. How do you see the mesh of this 5 years down the road?
I think I'm probably more opinionated than others about this space. And I really honestly believe the collective will not exist in its current form 2-3 years down the road. There are massive court cases that are going on. One in particular that could change everything about NIL. It was just pushed into a class action status. There's over $4 billion in exposure to the NCAA for back NIL pay. So all kinds of things are going to change. But what I think will happen is the NCAA is going to have to restructure how they are as an organization. And I think the collectives will come in under the purview of the school. So I think we're setting this all up to be able to port over to Siena College eventually, have everything compliant and set up where it can tie right into, say, Saints Alive or whatever they do to do donations on the athletic side, and then have a marketing arm for the players that's already up and running. So I think all of this is going to come together within the next 3 years.
So is that going to allow for you guys to still be involved with it and make changes?
I think so. I think it alleviates this, arm's length kind of thing, and we have to do these things independent. We stay compliant with the school, but the school should have input as to how the deals are structured, and it should tie into the athletics deals themselves. I know Van Wagner owns that particular media rights area. This should all be a part of it, right? And you saw Baker Dunleavy was the former coach at Quinnipiac.
Yep.
He got a job at Villanova. He's basically their general manager. So they're already setting up a structure internally like a professional sports organization. I think that's what you're going to see here too.
I think that's interesting. It's almost like the way I kind of hear it and see it. It's almost like having like a personal agent as within your college, And I think that's huge for kids a lot, especially when making a decision where to go, and especially at a mid-major school like Siena, having that sort of like backbone, that cushion to like rely on, I think is huge.
I do too. And I think the good news is we feel like we're way out ahead. There's a lot of momentum behind it. I think there was a lot of apprehension out of the gate. Today we just basically announced a relaunch of our website. So, folks want to go to www.saintsmarchon.com. We have a whole lot of other things that are in there now, including a new membership structure where you can be an annual member. You can do one-time donations. We've got events pages up there. We have our player dinner that's coming up on December the 2nd, and I want people to go there and grab tickets. We got Ronald Moore and Edwin Ubelis and Alex Franklin and Tay Fisher are all going to come back and kind of relive the Fran McCaffrey years. So, we're excited about that. And all the proceeds end up going to the collective, too.
Yeah. One thing I kind of can image in the future myself is, so we hosted the first and second round of the NCAA tournament last year, and we also do that this year for the women's, the Sweet 16 Elite 8. Hopefully this can help, it's helping Siena grow, but it can also help us, host more, because it was 20 years, I believe, since the last time we did. We were supposed to do in 2020, but never happened because of COVID. So hopefully now we can host more often than, we did before, because that'll also help Siena grow. So NIL is just impacting not only Siena, but also the whole community as well.
We hope so. And then I think the other challenge we have is we have to prove into businesses what NIL actually means and how these student athletes can actually positively impact their business. I mean, the thought is, once we get all of the numbers together, if you do a deal with a Siena athlete in the local community, they're going to be known. It's going to be a lot cheaper to do a deal with them for the upside that they can bring than to go pay $20,000, $30,000 on a commercial. Kids want to connect with kids. People want to connect. They influence a particular segment of the market. We just have to figure out how to get everybody comfortable with that.
Yeah, and you mentioned the deals. Right now we have the deals are getting better and better for these student athletes. Where do you see like the limit for these deals? Like, do you think they're going to keep growing for these athletes?
I think so. Again, I think once the businesses better understand how NIL works, what is this space? A lot of folks just don't know it at all. We have a deal with Leah Auto locally, and we just did a small deal for Michael Ealy with a local sandwich shop, the Works Cafe. Those things I think will continue to get larger and larger. But the other thing is, one of the things we say to the athletes, it's incumbent on them to build their brand. We can provide them all the tools, but they have to take it and run with it, right? Because we're not agents. Right, we're facilitators, but we don't act in an agency capacity.
You're giving them the keys to do their thing.
Yeah, exactly.
Gotcha.
Yep.
I think that's true. A lot of people don't know what NIL is, because Sam, who you hired to teach these athletes, she does a lot of the videos, and I've been noticing she does videos of asking people what NIL stands for, and they just have no clue. They're like, they come up with the most random stuff out there, and it's so funny to watch because NIL seems to everybody in athletics seems super big, and everybody knows what it is, but realistically, on a level of the whole world, nobody really knows what it is. So that's
Yeah. It is still a little bit of a niche, so we got to get it into the mainstream.
Yeah. If we could have one takeaway from you to describe what NIL is and just kind of wrap up and give our audience a general idea of what everything we just said.
And again, I'm probably a little too opinionated sometimes, but NIL represents what athletes that generated revenue for colleges should have had many, many years ago, right? It's fair. It's people talk about they get scholarships and cost of attendance, and absolutely they do. But the NCAA and the institutions have made billions and billions of dollars over many, many years with these kids as the product. They are the product. We're going down to see them play Holy Cross tonight because we want to see the players, right? We don't necessarily want to see the administrators. We want to see the players, right? And they should be profiting from that. And all of this TV money and everything that's going up and to the right, they haven't been able to benefit from that. And now that's sort of coming to roost. And that's what I think NIL represents. And it's good.
Awesome. Well, Frank, Sheila, we appreciate your time.
If you would like to make an impact on our student athletes, you can visit the Saints March On website. The link will be in the description, where you can find upcoming events such as our dinner on December 2nd to celebrate Onion's double order. And also you can find our Pledge Per campaign for our men's and women's basketball teams, where you can donate for every three-pointer or every win, or you can make a one-time donation. Thank you.
Thank you for joining us on this edition of Unscripted. We hope to see you next time.
Before we go, we'd like to give a few shout-outs to WVCR, the Siena College's radio station, for letting us use their station for this episode, Scott Noel and Frank Ambrose, and all of our guests that joined us for this episode.